Oh, it's juice in there. It's juice in there. You mean mommy pour the juice? Okay, tell pour some of your water out. Go tell Michael. Michael, she got that water by these computers.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Wherever you are, you're here with us live on Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, unless you're watching it after the fact. That was brought to my attention. So if you're seeing this after the fact, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're glad you found us. But we are just happy to have those who are in our Zoom studio right alongside us doing this presentation today, because we do appreciate the business owners that come and share with us, and our contractors and those who are actually working right alongside of us to help us teach people how to do business better, to be here to serve people as they're doing business and growing their businesses, and especially growing more valuable businesses. And so today we have an awesome set of slides, and we're just excited about, the entire episode itself, because we've talked a little bit about, building out a family business. We've talked about legacy. We've talked about how we do it, but now we need to talk a little bit more about what happens when the founder has departed, whether it's, a situation that is unfortunate where you didn't know that the person was going to depart, or whether it's something that happens in a sale. We just need to talk about who are the people that we're going to take this company over, and what they might be experiencing as they're taking the company over, and how they need to move forward. And so, John, will you roll our first slide today? Um, Today's episode is entitled Rebuilding a Family Business. Okay, let's take a look at this, because we really want to be, thinking about what we can do as people who might inherit the business, or people who are working in a company where the business is being inherited, or if the business is in the process. How can we help? So the departure of a founder, whether it's due to retirement or a passing, presents a significant challenge to any family business. And sometimes, if the families have made preparations, and the family members who actually founded the company are selling the company to, the next generation. Sometimes they're just passing the company to the next generation. It's not really a sale, it's just a transfer. But regardless, the legacy, the vision, the values of the founder are ingrained in the company's identity, and the culture even, is a culture that was created during the founder's tenure there. And so we got to talk about how the family can maintain the founder's vision, while embracing new ideas and navigating the changing landscape. This is really going to be an important episode, because I have it on good authority that many of you are building out your companies to pass them along. And if that's the case, we need to kind of have an idea of, what needs to be done on the side of the people who are receiving the company, because we talked a lot about what you're going to do as far as your succession plan and training your staff, or who might just happen to be your children or your nieces or nephews or whoever else might be in your family, your siblings. But we didn't necessarily talk about the side of the people who are receiving this company. How do they respond, to it? the pressures that might be there for them to make changes, or for that matter, just sell the company to someone else, because once they get in place, they might find out that it's a little bit more challenging to run the company than what they thought. We saw some things that happened with a company called Carol's Daughter, and a lot of people had they had some things to say. It was stuff on their mind. Carol's Daughter, for those of you who don't know what that is, but it's a company that actually makes hair products for people who are of color. Um, and so our hair is a little different, and we have all different types of hair within our in the spectrum of our hair. And Carol's Daughter had a product that or a set of products that were just really designed for our hair. And it was kind of interesting to watch, that transition, and to watch all of the media attention that went with the transition. But there are other companies that have had, a transition where the company passed to the family members and they kept it. They didn't sell it. And so in the case of Carol's Daughter, the company was actually sold. And there are many other companies that, we know of, that where the company's transitioned and it stayed in the family, and there was family drama and it was just a lot, but then we also have seen some times where people were able to make the transition and everything went well. So we're going to take a look at the importance of the family business and how we can have this generational legacy. What can happen here. So family businesses, they do have traditions, and these values that are built inside of them are connected a lot of times to the family members, okay? Not just, the family's ideals, but the actual people. And so when we have this strong sense of continuity where we actually can, move it from dad to the son, or dad to the daughter, or dad to all of the kids, or mom to, all of the children, or dad and mom to all of the children. There's a type of continuity and community that has been built within the company that can, remain. And it's a great opportunity to have this generational legacy building moment, within the company when that transfer happens. But a lot of times there are some deep rooted values, and we want to pay attention to these shared family values, because those values sometimes are guiding principles. I mean, really, they're guiding principles with ethical practices, and a lot of times there's, really good customer service. I never forget that I used to go to a restaurant in California that was, Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. I will never forget that restaurant. Oh my gosh, back when I was eating chicken, because I don't eat flesh like that anymore. But interestingly enough, at that time, just the service and the whole culture of the restaurant and the way that things were set up, man, it was just amazing. And there was another one, Doolin's. Oh, I love Doolin's. And so Doolin's, the dad who actually started that particular restaurant, his son started a restaurant as well. And it was, pretty phenomenal. And just the family values from one restaurant to another restaurant, and the way that they had a commitment to the people in the community, their social responsibility, the type of efforts that they made for philanthropy, it was amazing, and I mean, I just really enjoyed those restaurants and enjoyed watching things. But there were also other types of, in our community, we had other types of businesses that were passed from one person to another. We saw franchises pass from, the dad to the son. Yeah, I mean, Denny's restaurants, Church's Fried Chicken. Okay. We saw, Rexall drug store that was passed from, one generation to another in our community. There were just so many family businesses that we watched move from one person to another person in our communities. And so I have to just bring that out, because a lot of times, when, and I'm not just talking about people from African descent, but, just generally people who have strong close knit relationships within the family, strong bonds, good family ties. A lot of times it fosters trust and it provides the loyalty and the shared perspectives and purposes that will give the ability for a family to come together and keep the company going. Okay. And so I'm saying this because I want to really set a tone for what we're talking about. Yes, there are some times when families don't click and the family business doesn't pass. People are just happy to get rid of it because of it's a source of angst, based on maybe a lack of funds or some of the things that the business created, whether it be there being contention between siblings because of the fact that it was perceived, favoritism, between the parents and a particular set of kids or whatever, and so you have a lot of this kind of thing, but you also have the ability to right some of those wrongs per se and look at the ability to prioritize sustainability over, feelings about, what may have gone wrong or what could have been done different. We have to really be able to prioritize the legacy and building of legacy, over issues of maybe our parents didn't know what they didn't know or how to even, use the strengths of everyone, or for that matter, to recognize, where the giftings were properly. And based on that, we end up with some of the people with hurt feelings and not wanting to move forward. But I am saying to you that your legacy is worth more than that. Okay. And if there is any way to salvage, what it is that you have and to look at this thing differently, where you can, kind of straighten some things out and rework what needs to be reworked and position people properly so that the family business can continue. It is worth it for the sake of the people coming after you. Okay. So, yes, some people may have to sell their companies. They may not have the resources or the funds or the know-how, or they just may not be willing, wanting to move forward. But if it's at all possible, that this is something that can be done, there is a way that you can build out the family legacy, so that the business and other things that are attached to it can remain. Next slide, please. So what are some of the challenges that are faced by family businesses? Where do they find themselves, And Javon, can you go to the next slide? Wonderful. Thank you so much. There are some things that, as a family business, that you got to be thinking about, and if these things didn't happen in the right order, or if you feel like, it was just not enough attention given to, one thing that I have on this list, I can guarantee you that most of the times it's not too late, to rework the way that things are, and with just a little creativity and maybe a little innovation, the family can come together, to help kind of get past some of the challenges. So let's look at the challenges first, though. Succession planning is a challenge for a lot of families. They do not do well. Okay. Many families don't do well at really ensuring the smooth transition of power. It's difficult. And sometimes, you just can't minimize the disruption because the family member who was the founder might be ill, or might have other issues, financial issues. Sometimes it may not even be that. It may be that they made too much money and they're really not interested in stepping down anytime soon. And it may be a situation where health-wise, they just don't realize that they need to start looking at, grooming potential successors to take over the leadership role. And so they don't do it soon enough. And then we have issues, but Some of the other issues that might also be present are interpersonal conflicts. Family dynamics create they're common challenges that are common to just about every business that exists that's a family business. It may not be that and the business may not be the same kind of business. It may be retail, or for that matter hospitality, or some other kind of business, but the challenges as far as interpersonal conflicts might be very much the same. The conflicts come from different places, and they often come from competing interests, differing perspectives, and emotional attachments. Because people who build a business, and I can tell you this from you know firsthand knowledge, sometimes we get attached, and our attachments are to things that really you know, um, may not be in the best interest of all parties. It might just be, this is what I want because I built it, it's mine, and so I've seen people have these kinds of issues, and they may not be thinking about not just the next generation, but at that point they might not even be thinking about their clients and customers. They might be thinking about how they feel about the fact that they've spent all of their life and their life savings and their time and their energy, putting something into this company, and now they want to get what they put in out, okay? Or they just want it to have the knowledge, or feel like whoever it is taking it over is going to be as vested as they were. So financial management also may be a challenge. I mean, balancing your personal and business finances can be really complex for a family sometimes, and especially if the business, have has had some dips, and maybe a few times where things didn't go as well as they were expecting, and so they had to use some of the family's money to rebuild the business, or to float the business, until it became solvent again. And so sometimes this can lead to, financial challenges as far as managing the resources. There may not be enough reserves. And particularly when family members are involved in both personal and business decisions, sometimes the best decisions aren't necessarily made. Then there might be some external factors, economic downturns, the pandemic. I mean, it created a tremendous challenge for a lot of family businesses, and industry competition, or for that matter, regulatory changes that, pose challenges for families to stay in business, and adapting sometimes to these changes will require the kind of agility that we talked about yesterday, okay, and a forward thinking approach. And so sometimes people may have to go and get more training. It just may not be that they don't have the desire, but they just may not know enough to be able to weather that storm without, adding a little extra knowledge, in the right place. Next slide, please. So, how can we really evaluate the importance of the family's founder's legacy and vision? I need you to understand that this is a very, very complex situation, because a lot of people who are in business that were the founders of the business, to them the legacy is more than just a business, okay? And sometimes there's a little bit of confusion, surrounding the, whether or not that person feels like they are their business or not. And I have worked with customers and clients who were a little older than I am, and I'm getting up there. And I just will say this to you, that what I have come to understand is that we really have to be able to celebrate their accomplishments, and help them to understand that their guiding principles that grew the company, that their commitment to excellence, and whatever it is that they put in their money, okay, that you not just respect what they've done, you regard it, and that it is treasured in the hearts of those who are now going to take on the reins of keeping the company going. You have to be able to consider the person's motivations and the goals that they had for the company and their aspirations. Even if you're going to make changes, you need to still, and if that person is alive, or even if their spouse is alive, or they're and you're involved in this transfer and transition of power, you want to be thinking about how they feel. The empathy side of this has to be, wrapped in compassion. I mean, it just does, because when you have put a lot of your hard earned cash and time and energy into anything, and you're now taking that thing and you're passing it to someone who is going to guide its future, you want to know that that person is, that they have your heart, that they understand that what you have done, you didn't just do it for you, but you did it for the future of the family. And so when you're shaping the future of the family business, you have got to look at, okay, I need to see everything that I can see about how this thing was designed. Um, I sometimes will think about, what if I were a person that was receiving, a business that was designed or developed by a person like Elon Musk. Okay. It's like, how do I get in that man's head? I have no idea. Somebody who worked 80 hours a week. This is what is reported that Elon has worked. And someone that puts in, I mean, I put in quite a few hours, and I put in 60 hours before. I know what that feels like. I don't know if I've put in 80. I haven't really counted. My kids probably would have to tell me if I've done that, but and my husband. But the bottom line is that, when you put in that much time, you want to know that the people who are coming into the fold, who are now taking over the business, maybe they've been working here before, but now they're actually going to run it, that they have the same tenacity, even if they're not spending the same amount of time. They've got the technology to make the time that they spend work the way that it needs to work, so that the company is solid. And they have a clear understanding about what makes the company valuable, and they're not walking into it holding everything inside of them, so that they could be then, pushed into a position where they're in the owner's trap, where everything revolves around them, as it sometimes has done the people who founded the company. It takes a lot to get yourself out of the owner's trap and to position yourself where the company has, the valuable assets it needs. And I'm talking now about human capital, not cash, but the humans that need to be in place to actually run it. And so when you're thinking about this, you want to really, make sure that if you're that chosen crew, okay, the kids that get the family's business, you want to be thinking about, okay, I want to do this, and I want to make sure that while I'm doing it smart. I'm building it valuable. I'm building it, so that it will last, so that I can then pass it down, or whatever the future holds for the family's company. Now, transitioning leadership to the next generation. I love this slide because it kind of gives you a progression, okay, for succession planning. And so even though we've talked about it before, I just wanted to bring it back up again so that it's in the forefront of your mind, because if you're taking the company over, you're going to have to do the same thing. And if you're the person who is being groomed to be the successor, this really is the transition plan. If you're the person that actually is watching this and you haven't yet passed the family's business on, you're right at the helm of where you're preparing to do that, this is a good time. Okay, it's a good time, because now you have something that you can look at that's simple, that makes sense, okay, for making sure that there's a smooth transition. So let's go through this. Number one, okay, at the top, we have this identify and preparing potential successors. And we've talked about that before for some of you who have watched this. So I'm going to harp on it because I am all about the training of your replacement. Okay, I'm that one. You have to be able to know, if possible, if you have someone already in your team, your family, that can be a potential successor. And if so, then you've got to be able to, start to groom them for taking over that role. And so number two is right in line with that, because now you've got to develop out a comprehensive transition plan, outline some roles and some responsibilities and some timelines so that, you kind of have, not this never ending process, okay, of getting there, but actually a time frame that makes sense for how long, it's going to take us to, get people trained. And, how do we make sure that, when we're transferring things over, it's done in a way that is healthy for the company, that it doesn't, disrupt things so that we end up losing, a tremendous amount of our clients and customers while we're making the transition. You want to be looking at all of those things. And then you got to be able to make sure that while you're putting together the plan and while you're instituting the plan, that you've got the right amount of healthy communication, that it's a collaborative process, that there's open dialogue between the generations, and that people talk about and really celebrate the accomplishments of people as they're making these accomplishments. Because as people are beginning to transition or beginning to learn how you're going to transition, taking on their roles, sometimes people can feel a little inadequate, especially if you were good at what you did. And I'm just being honest with you. I'm telling you, there are some of us who are good at what we do. And we know that we're good at what we do. And our next generation sometimes doesn't feel that they can fulfill those roles. They might look at you and say, there's no way I can step into my parents' shoes. I remember looking at my mom and all of the things that she had accomplished. And I mean, I was there at her homegoing service. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a funeral. It's also known as a funeral, but we called it a homegoing service because she wasn't actually being funeralized. She was being memorialized. But, we really knew where she was going or had gone, and we were just celebrating her life. So we called it a homegoing celebration. But when we were there, 4 hours for a viewing, a 2-page spread in the Sentinel newspaper, all types of, different cards and letters and these commemorations that were given by different kinds of state offices and the mayor's office and this representative and that representative. Looking at her life from that standpoint, made you really happy that you were, ecstatic that you are part of this, family, and that you were connected to this woman. But then looking also at, man, who's going to fill her shoes? It's like there's almost this feeling of, being overwhelmed, with all of who she was, and being a person who did have to pick up, some of what she has done, and add it to our lives. Each one of us had a piece, having this feeling of that, there's no way I can fill this role. And I don't even know who else could, because, her being the matriarch of our family, she not only covered our family, but she covered so many other people's families. And, I can't even tell you all of the people that we would have in the back of our station wagon when I was growing up, getting them from class to, or from school to violin lessons or to orchestra practice or to the boys choir or all of these other things, and even at the time when she was a Girl Scout leader, or for that matter, the leader of the Brownies, and, or the Cub Scout den mother, it was just a lot. And so when you think about, that and look at how a business could be for someone that is just excellent at what they do, and how their children could feel inadequate to step in their shoes, you have to be able to make sure that you are communicating and opening the dialogue so that people are able to see that, there's no way that you're going to be able to fill my shoes at your age, where I am now, because I've had a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of, practice doing what I do. However, I'm celebrating you from where you are, okay? That you are brave enough to step in the role of the new business owner, and that you are able to bring what you have to the table and begin to build upon what I have already done. You don't have to start where I started because I already did that part. Now you can just take on what I've done and move from here to the next level. Now, I just gave you the whole spiel. You speak it in your words, put it together, but communicate it to your team, communicate it to your children, because when you do that, then they can understand, okay, you know what? I see where I don't have to go and try to be my dad or be my mom. I just need to be me and take on the ability to get a business that's already been prepared to this point so that I can move from here to the next level. That is really important. Then you need to be able to provide the training that's needed and the mentorship, so that they can feel prepared. They can be prepared, because they have, some skills and they now have some training. Okay. Formalize the transition process, make it legal and do the financial part. Okay. Because sometimes people don't necessarily feel valued when that part doesn't quite get handled right. And so let me just say this. I was so impressed with learning how a family, took an insurance policy and they used that insurance policy to transition the next set of owners. Okay. And that we have to do in another session. We don't have enough time to do it today, but I'm telling you, it was an amazing concept to watch how someone could prepare a policy in a certain kind of way that would pay the persons who were relinquishing their company to their next set of owners, their kids, okay, with funds that were in an annuity or inside of an insurance policy. They were able to, get the funds necessary to pay the parents what they needed to have to sell the business to the kids. And it was a wonderful transition of power and also finances, so that it made it worth the parents' while to do everything in their power to make sure that their children were going to be successful. And having those legal and financial aspects addressed is something that will provide a family, with a win-win. The kids win, the parents win, and then the customers win. So that's a win-win-win, as Dr. Colette Portis would say. Okay, next slide, please. So how do we maintain some family dynamics and cohesion? What is it that we can do to make sure that everything stays, intact while we're making this switch or making this transfer? Well, some of the things that we can do is, we know that we have these harmonious relationships within the family. And when you have the strong relationships, even though I've seen some things go awry, with people who have strong dynamics and wonderful cultures in their family, and just the things didn't get handled well. And so because of that, it kind of broke down the bond. But, you can really maintain harmonious relationships with just having good communication and having respect for the roles. If there's a transition that happens and dad has now transitioned the company over to his daughter, and he knows that now the daughter is in the lead, respect for her role is going to be important, because, showing up saying, hey, I noticed that, things are not going well. And I just want to come, maybe I should come back for a couple of months to get us back on track. That may not be the best way to handle the situation. Having shared commitment to the business's vision is important, but also respecting the fact that when that role transitioned, and now the thing that you can do best is to support and offer the assistance, but offer it in a way that doesn't feel like a takeover. Okay. Just saying. Okay. Then having these shared values and goals, when you have some clearly defined family values and everybody knows what they are, that we're going to run this company, we're going to keep this company in our family for 100 years, or we have decided that we're going to keep it in our family for 50 years, or for that matter, for 30 years. And then we're going to sell it and we're going to put that money in our trust or whatever we're doing. We just need to have these values that are shared. Everybody needs to be in alignment if possible. The personal aspirations need to be aligned with the company's mission. Sometimes you want to pass the company on to a child that's actually in school for something completely different. And you need to be thinking about, if that's the case, how does this fit? And so you got to talk about it. You can't assume they're going to get to the end of their schooling and decide that, okay, I'm all in for the family business. Because if they have had it in their heart and it's been a part of their aspiration to do something different, maybe they want to be a lawyer, or maybe they have chosen a different business that they want to start. You need to be aware and not hold things over your kids' heads like, okay, well, this is the family business. You ought to be able to lay down. I laid down my aspirations. You should lay down yours, so that we can keep the family business going. And I am telling you that is never the way to actually, transition the company into the next level of owners. Okay. You've got to be thinking about this differently. Just because you're transitioning it to your children doesn't necessarily mean that they need to sit in the C-suite. Maybe they are the owners, but maybe they have enough sense to know that if they're not going to be a good CEO because of the fact that there's other things happening in their life, or that just may not be what they want, then they're going to hire in the right people if they're going to keep the company going, so that the company and the family does not lose. Okay. And then there needs to be transparency and accountability. You got to promote the ability for people to see how you make decisions, because when you're making decisions and you're managing the finances, the next level of owners need to kind of understand how you're doing that. Even if you haven't been very good at it, they need to know that too. The last thing on earth that they need to be experiencing is when the company transfers, they see something that they never expected to see. The company was in shambles, okay, or the company had a rough patch that lasted 20 years or whatever it is. They need to know that ahead of time. And sometimes that next level of owners can help to bring context, and also can help with solutions, for what may be considered to be a rough patch, or it could be just bad management. And they may have the solution to what has been the issue for the company for many, many years. So you got to be able to share, in a way that's transparent, so that people can weigh in with their skill set. I love the fact that there are some families where one child will go to school to be the attorney while another one goes to school to be the CPA, so they can come back and run the family's business. There's a very, very well-known pastor, and I had an opportunity to have some dealings with him years ago, and he has that as a situation where he's got kids who are competent. They are schooled, okay, well schooled in what's happening in the community, but they are also extremely well educated. And so having the ability to run what he has as his enterprise at this point, aside from the ministry that he pastors, really gives his companies the ability to, operate flawlessly, like well-oiled machines. And so this is something that you want to be thinking about, when you are preparing and your children, and raising them. And if you see certain skill sets that that could be utilized, or for that matter, even if they decide decide later that they're not going to do, work in your company at first. They may come back to work in the company later, but they want to go out and just, get more experience first. Still put the time and the energy and the money into them, because at the end of the day, I can tell you, I have seen it happen where children that said, I'm not doing nothing with my mama's company. I don't want to have nothing with no pies. I'm not going to be running a bakery. That's just not me. That, at some point they saw the value in it and what it could mean to the family for that company to be able to do well. And I've watched it. They just, something in them said, okay, I'm in. All right. At 45. Whereas, at 25, they were like, nah, I'm not doing that. Okay. But at 45, what, mom's getting older. This is a family business. I don't want to see anybody else get it, and I know that we can do well, and they'll jump in, so I've seen that happen, in a lot of cases. And so don't, take their first answer for no. It may just be not yet. Okay. I'm not old enough to make a decision. I just haven't seen enough of the world yet to know that this is a valuable opportunity. There might be that in your family. And so you want to look at it that way. So, you want to have some family time and events that, outside of your company. I mean, I remember when I was running my business from home as my kids were younger, and oh my gosh, everything was about what I was doing, at one point, because I didn't have balance. And so I had to learn how to, create some opportunities for us to do other things, and being able to take the kids to the museum, to the fire station, so they can get a, view of what happened there, and we went a lot of different places. We had all these different field trips because I was homeschooling my kids at a period of time. So we had lots of opportunities to go places and do things, and I had to make a conscious effort, a commitment to the raising and rearing of my children, which is one of the reasons why I stopped working a regular job at one point, because I needed to be able to have access to their lives, and I needed them to have access to mine, to see what I did every day and not to imagine what it looked like. My mom goes to work and my mom comes home. I need them to be able to understand, what that really means. And so for them to see me work from home and sometimes put in, heavy hours, sometimes burn the midnight oil, but I was still there to do homework with them and to talk to their teachers and to understand what was going on in their lives, because it was really important for me to have a family first mentality, and sometimes it didn't feel that way to them because they saw me working 3 jobs. But now that they're adults, they have a different conversation, and they understand, oh, wow, you were working 3 jobs so we could have food and these computers and software and, phones and things that we needed to live in the world, and so and then also being in a position where, you have to make some hard decisions, when you are in a position where you own your company. Sometimes owning your companies means that you have to make sacrifices, but helping your young people understand what those sacrifices really mean is going to be extremely important, because they at one time are going to be in your shoes. And because of that, you need to make sure that you can provide them an opportunity, to have some growth and some opportunities to see what it means, to sacrifice for and delay gratification for a short period, so that you can have the outcome that you're looking for, at another period. So let's look at the last slide here that we're going to talk about today, and then we'll jump back in on this, next week, because this has been one of those where we have to have a part 1 and part 2. So we'll come back to it next Tuesday. But I really want you to be thinking about, how do you evaluate your business's current state? Now, sure, you can do a real valuation analysis of the company and get the real numbers, from a valuation analyst or a financial modeler, or someone who is a certified valuation analyst. Someone in those kinds of positions can tell you what the company's worth, but evaluating the company's current state is different. Okay. This is a thorough evaluation that you who are in the business can do to see this, what it is that is making the company go? What is it that is causing us to make the money we make, and what is it that's causing us, to lose money when we lose money? What are our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities and threats? That's a SWOT analysis. And performing a SWOT analysis of your business can give you information and insights that will cause the ability for your next level of owners to understand, what we can do, what we need to do, what we probably should do before other things. All of those things are important because the process, itself is going to give you this comprehensive analysis of your financial performance and your market position and your operational efficiencies and even the customer's satisfaction. You need to know that your customers are satisfied. But it also should include some other factors, okay? The revenue trends, what's going on external, not internal, but external. Okay, what's happening in the industry? So not just your own trends, but the industry's trends. Okay, some profitability margins. Okay, how profitable is your company really, and what is the share of the market that you have? Are you one of 100,000 companies that do what you do, or are you, one of 5 companies that do what you do that serve 100,000 people? I mean, you need to have that as a, you know, as a part of, in business information, intelligence that you can go to understand what some next steps might be. And then you also need to know, what does it cost you to do the business that you do with your customers? And what is your employee satisfaction rate? Are people really happy to be working for you? Uh, what's the technology stack that you have, your infrastructure? How does it work? And when you can take a look at things and see, what key areas of improvement you need to make, then your business can develop, a roadmap. We call it a strategic plan, for your future growth and success. Well, this has been Dr. Patience Jackson Rose, and I know we've talked a lot today about, rebuilding the business, and we're talking about it from the standpoint of when the business gets passed to you, but we're also talking to the people who might be passing the business. If you're watching this before you actually make that pass, then, there's a lot of really good information here. If you're the person that got the business and it's already in your hands, then I'm giving you some key things that can help you really dissect what you have in your hands and maybe understand how you can turn some things around that might need to be turned around, or if it's already going very, very well, how you can maintain that and how you can begin to set yourself on a trajectory for having a succession plan for your next level of owners as well. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we come right on and talk to some more about wellness. We have a part 2 of a session that we did last week, and we're going to continue with that. But for those of you who want to have the part 2 of this session, you'll need to be on next Tuesday to get it so that you can be a part of our emerging group of people who are watching these sessions and learning from them and taking the information and employing it right away. We thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you again next time.